Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond, where we reflect on our history, our heritage, our culture, and our own authentic voice. And I'm your host today, Alexander Evans, and with my co-host, Amari Johnson.
Black Power.
Black Power, yeah. Talking about Black Power, we're going to talk about mentoring. Did you have any mentors? Because that's the thing with mentoring the Black community.
Mentor, well, that's a different tradition from mine. So no, I didn't have any mentors, but I did have a Jegna.
Okay, expand, my brother.
Well, Jegna is an African term, come from East Africa, which is not quite the same as mentor, which grows out of the Greek tradition. And if you read the Iliad and the Odyssey, you see exactly what sort of practices mentor. But that's another show.
Okay, but I like that.
But I did have, a few folks when I was growing up, two in particular. One I met when I was in high school, and was really he came around at a crucial time, because this was a time when I had started reading, seeing the world a little bit differently, and was kind of disoriented. He came through and really ushered me through that period. And then somebody who came in just a little bit after that and is still with me till this day. So I've definitely had some folks in my life. What about you?
Before I even answer, because I like what you said, can you give people a definition between those two? The one you said came from West Africa?
Well, East Africa.
East Africa.
The Jegna is basically just a teacher, right? And a guide.
Okay.
Not in the sense of a classroom, right? But in the sense of life experiences, connecting you to traditions that extend beyond yourself or your immediate, past. So that's pretty much what
well, I had markers. I think we all secretly or sometimes have markers in our life, things that attributes or admirations that we have about people. So I had markers in my life, and I had teachers, I would say.
All right.
And then I think those teachers instilled in me, they spoke certain things into my life. Like when I was young, they called me the professor. And then my one uncle called me the rock.
Yeah.
So they began to pronounce certain things about my character and attributes that gave it meaning. And I had that type of encouragement, because when you think of a rock, you think of something solid, strong, resistance,
I thought it was because you had a hard head.
I had one of those too, and strong teeth.
Right.
And they called me like professor and things like that. And they saw things in me that I didn't see in myself at that particular time, because they was older. And then it was things that I admired about them, their strength, their courage, how they was the protector and the guardian of the women in our families, and the protectors and guardian in our community as well. So, and I admired those things.
So one of the things that you said in there, though, was you were talking particularly to character, which I think is a central focus, or at least should be, of someone who's going to occupy this role, not only for identifying and cultivating character within the person they're working with, but also making sure they themselves are of sound character. So we talk a lot about mentoring in the Black community, without necessarily focusing on who are these mentors themselves, and that's extremely important. Fortunately for us today on 28 Days and Beyond, we're going to be joined by DeVon Jackson, who is a mentor and is very much involved with mentoring work. So when we come back, we'll be back with DeVon Jackson.
Have you ever worked really hard for something that you wanted really bad, and once you had it, you weren't sure how you were going to be able to maintain that? There was a time in my life when I was in college, and all of the hard work I had put into enrolling in the school of my dreams almost came to an end. A pivotal moment that changed my future and the path that I was on. As a first-generation college student, fresh off the farm at a private university, I learned quickly that high school had not prepared me for the academic rigor of college. I struggled in my first year, taking classes toward a career in the sciences that I had convinced myself I was ready for. After failing chemistry my first semester, that first year of college, I was a little dejected. But I had an epiphany. If I took that same class the second semester, why wouldn't I pass it? Boy, was I wrong. When I failed chemistry that second semester, it was very clear to me that my future did not lie in the sciences. So to begin my second year of college on academic probation meant venturing into a new path. This time I figured business would be the route to take. Optimistic that my new major would lead to success, I enrolled in economics courses. 2 classes and 2 semesters later, I found myself in that same place, failing my classes and coming to a crossroad. Do I stay for another semester without financial aid, and try and get my grades up? Or do I transfer to the community college and finish my degree just to be done with school? Have you ever reflected on the successes in your life and wondered who may have been there to help you along the way? Sometimes I think we feel we reach our victories alone, but if we think really hard, we probably find that there was someone there pushing us along the way. Mentoring is so important because of the impact it can have on an individual's life, but also your own. In fact, studies out of Johns Hopkins suggest that when adults mentor young people, there's an effect on the ability to prevent and delay declining brain function. There's something about mentoring that just makes you feel good.
Welcome back to 28 Days and Beyond. And on the set with us, Mr. DeVon Jackson. Welcome to the set.
Well, thank you.
We're going to dig in a little and unpack what does mentoring look like, and what are some of the mentors that help shape you in the community you grew up in?
For me, what a mentor looks like, a person that is willing to be vulnerable, a person that's willing to give themselves for, I guess, the betterment or looking at the potential of another person. So, you know, me as a mentor, I'm going to basically treat my mentee, if you will, like family, like it was my own child, if you will. So definitely there's boundaries, obviously, that you need to have as a mentor. If that person's not in your family as well. But I think a mentor is a person that gives themselves so that the other person, excuse me, so that the mentee can be, I guess, who he or she can be.
One of the things we were talking about at the top is what to you is the difference between a mentor and a teacher? If any.
So I think for me, I think a mentor can be a teacher and a teacher can be a mentor. But I think for everyone else who sees the difference between the two, I think those differences are a teacher is a person that just gives information and doesn't care whether or not it is influential or if it affects how you live. For instance, if I'm a professor, I am teaching you the subject, and you have to, you know, agree to. Right. You may not believe in what I'm teaching, but you have to agree to it so that you can get a grade. To a person outside the classroom, I think a teacher and a mentor are the same, because I'm teaching you things so that your life or your experiences can be better and not what other people experience. A lot of folks talk about experience is the best teacher. If you ask me, I think a teacher is the best teacher. So, and I understand we have to experience things to learn, but I think if I touch my hand put my hand on the stove and I say it's hot, you know, I'm telling you it's hot, you know. That's the best advice you can give me. You know, some folks want to be stubborn and do it themselves, but so I think a teacher is a person that kind of gives that information out there, and it doesn't matter whether or not the person takes it or not. They don't check on it.
One of the things I like to go on when they talk about role models, and let's dispel some of the myths, when they talk about black communities and things of that nature, we always think of a leader as the one who's out in front or the role models out in front. Can you help give people insight on when they use those kind of terminologies of role models, there's no role models or things like that?
I'm sorry, ask that question one more time.
So role models, right? Mentor, teacher, role model.
Right.
So there are myths that if Martin Luther King ain't living in your neighborhood,
right, you can't be a leader.
You can't be a leader, or there's no leaders in there because they're not on TV and speaking for everybody.
So I guess there's a thing called followership too. You know, leadership, followership. I agree. A leader is who you are inside. I am a person that believes that a leader is both born and bred. I teach a leadership class at Villanova for freshmen, and we talk about I ask them this question, and a lot of people think it's something that you're born with. A lot of people think it's something that you can teach a person, but I think it's both. Look at my son, for instance, where he's 2 years old. Actually, my son, Ethan, who is 7 years old now, you know, when he was little, he would gather people around him to play with toys. I didn't teach him to do that. You know, it was something that he just thought was good, and he, you know, the kids would surround him and play with his toys with him. So, but there are other things that I teach him, how to think and how to be critical. So I think it's both born and bred. So in response to your question, I think people need to realize that I think the people on the TV and people in front are looked at too much and are we put too much, what's the word I'm looking for?
Pressure, emphasis. Pressure,
emphasis is probably a better word. We put an emphasis on those people that are in front, not realizing that there are people with even more potential that are sitting waiting to, I guess, lead. And you know, Martin Luther King did a lot of good things, but there was a lot of people behind him that did I'm not gonna say more, but they did a whole lot that pushed him forward. So yeah, I think being a role model is more than just being in front. I think it's just being an example.
So when we talk about these ideas, you know, a lot of times initially we think of these sort of formal designations, right? I am your mentor, or I am a role model, right? As opposed to, so some folks may say there's a dearth of mentorship in the Black community, but the reality is we know, right? There are folks on our block or who we come into contact with every day who are occupying these roles.
Right.
What shape might they take, you know, that wouldn't necessarily be obvious to the naked eye?
I think, like you said, neighborhoods. I think community leaders. I think people like the block captains. I think people like the people who are at the rec centers. I think, you know, this might be contrary to other people's belief, other people's perspectives, but I think some police officers that live in the neighborhood. I think some of those people that watch their kids next door. Like if I need to go somewhere, if I need to run to the corner store, hey sis, can you watch my kids for a second? And go over to the neighbor's house. I think those people are can be mentors, can be role models. But I also think when you think about mentoring, like what is the definition of mentoring? Like what is a mentor? I think we put this word of mentor in a box, and so it has to be someone who is teaching you these things and being vulnerable. Like I said, it doesn't have to be that person. A person could just be, you know, who gives advice, you know, and so who gives sound and good wisdom. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that typical that mentor that everyone thinks is supposed to be. It could just be someone who is doing things the right way. They may not even be sharing it with the kids or with the people around. It could just be someone that I can watch and say, you know what, I want to be like him. You know, he may not even say a word to me, but he's doing the right thing. He's an example, like I said before. So I think they take many shapes, many forms, but the community leaders, the people at the corner stores, you know, who are giving advice, the people who are in the rec centers, the people who are in the churches at the corner, the people who are, you know, walking their dogs. I think people who steer them the right way they take the mask of a mentor.
Certainly. Well, you know, here on 28 Days and Beyond, we'll be digging deeper with DeVon Jackson when we come back.
Now, you can be an intentional mentor, meaning that you seek out opportunities to help others grow, or perhaps you fall into the unintentional mentoring category, being a mentor and not even knowing it. I've had many mentors in my life, both professionally and personally, mostly intentional, others not. But think about that. Have you ever mentored someone and not even realized it? Maybe you were advising or leading by example, and you never saw the results of that mentoring. I've learned along the years that our actions and our behaviors give us mentoring qualities, but you don't have to be old to mentor. Young people can mentor too. Some of my favorite moments have been when I've been able to connect with students that have impacted my life and realize that something in our passing helped them grow and succeed. I love reconnecting with those students after the years have gone by and learning that our relationship impacted their future. Now, I don't want you to confuse mentoring with being a role model. Role models can also lead by example. But as we've seen in the media, role models can go from good to bad.
We're back with 28 Days and Beyond, and we're going to dig a little deeper with DeVon Jackson. DeVon, I want to pick up on one of the things that you have said throughout our discourse, and it reminded me of the pillars that we had in our communities. And, you know, your parent can discipline me, your parent can discipline me, and other people have the right to correct us or self-correct us when we was out of line within those communities. One, do you think they still exist? And two, if they haven't, what is some of the disruption that has happened? Yeah,
I think they do exist. We were talking about this, you know, on the break. I think they do exist. I think they are just in a different position to share those, I think, desires. You know, like we were saying during the break, some of them, you know, on those blocks, you know, some of them they're not there that long. So why establish that relationship with them? You know, sometimes they're scared of what the response is going to be because they're a lot older. So again, you said our generation where our moms could do that, but this new generation of parents, they're like, don't touch my kid, or you can't do that. Who are you to say? This is my business. So there's a little, I guess, fear, if you will, to do that, especially when you see specific things. I would call myself that type of pillar because, you know, me being 38 and growing up in that era, I see young parents and I want to discipline them on how they discipline their child and how they do specific things.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I'll see people crossing the street. Just the other day, I was in my car and this young woman, she was crossing the street with her child and she left the child kind of lagging behind and she was on the phone. And I was saying to myself, well, you're on the phone while you're crossing the street. So of course your child is going to be that way. And so stuff like that, paying attention, like why are you on the phone at 8:30 in the morning? Who are you talking to? To take away the attention from your child. So like things like those small things, I think those pillars do exist.
Okay.
I just think they don't see the value, or no, I'm not gonna say they don't see the value. They are probably hesitant to follow that desire to correct because of what society says about correcting someone, that's correcting a stranger, or doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. So I think there's a fear to kind of put it out there, sometimes. So I think they exist. They're just still, if you will.
But on that point, how would you approach that situation? Because I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. They see something wrong, but they're not really sure how to approach the situation.
Yeah. You know what? I try to be as tactful as I can with specific things. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm probably one of those who are afraid to do something like that, just because of the responses and some of the experiences that I've had being that person to try and say something. I've went up to a person. There was a small child crying in the mall at one point, and the parent was at the counter and the child was on the floor crying. And I said, "Ma'am, your child is over there crying. I think you should get her." And she kind of, not with a big attitude, she looked at me like, "You better mind your business." Huh? And I was like, okay. So I took the responsibility to watch him while she was at the counter, because he was on his way out, and I had to, stay here, son. I had to be the parent a little bit because she was too busy, doing her thing. And so I think at the end of the day, because I am a parent, I think the safety of the child will come. So I would probably ignore the person, to answer your question. I would probably ignore going to her and risk her getting mad at me or him getting mad at me just for the safety of the child. So
what you're saying is extremely important, because we can talk about how, where are they now? We don't have those pillars anymore. But part of it is that nobody's stepping up and doing the difficult things. I mean, a lot of people are sensitive, they're ego. Oh, nah, she ain't gonna look at me like that. Or the dude gonna curse me out, word. All right, F him, turn their back on the situation, as opposed to saying, all right, despite how you feel about me, I'm still invested in the well-being of your child, and I'm gonna do what I have to do, even if, I get cursed out, even if I get embarrassed in public, to ensure that child is safe. Right. What do you think about that?
I think you do what you're supposed to do. I think the children are our future. I know it's a cliche term, but they are. And I think protecting them at all costs is important. Protecting their minds, protecting them physically. I think it's very important to protect the sanctity that is the child, the vulnerability that is the child, the innocence, everything that the essence of a child. You need to protect that. And so, I would risk getting into an argument if I see a child getting ready to do something that's going to be harmful for him or hers well-being. And so, I'm like that as a parent. I have, my son goes over to his friend's house, and his friend's dads correct him. I don't have a problem with that. Like, we're in their house, so you have to listen to their rules. There are rules that I give you that are general, but you're in their house. So if they say you can't stand on the couch, then you can't stand on the couch. Or they say you can't say what. Not like he says what in my house either, but if you can't say what to that person, then you need to, adhere to the rules of the house, And so when I picked my son up one time and I saw that correction being done, I just sat back like, wow, I don't have to do it by myself. It was great to see that person step up and not worry about if I was being offended. It was good. It was weird to see another man chastising my child, but at the same time, it was like it was good for him. So
I think of a couple points you guys picked up, you elaborate on, was that character development thing. And I think when you have character, you can't control the outcome of how you will deal with that, have that exchange with that person. And one who has strong character, as long as they do it in a diplomatic way, to take that initiative and take that care and run the risk. Right. And I think people ran the risk in times past to deal with that person that wasn't all emotionally stable or will respond in a certain way. So what do you think that, in spite of that, like, that kind of gesture, baby, watch your son, there's a car coming, you're on the phone, that kind of thing, to help them transition, because they may not know. And sometimes the response is a lack of not understanding where that character development has been built in those communities in times past. What are some of the ways that we can help instill that in the people who are not paying attention at the smaller things of that nature, that character component?
I think those pillars, they need to step up a little bit. It's about our community. I mean, you have to be in a position to, if you see something wrong, you have no room to complain about it if you're not doing anything about it. And so I can't complain about things in the black community. I can't complain about things that are happening in children. I can't complain about, things that are happening in our institutions if I'm not proactively doing something, not reactive, but being proactive and doing something. There's many things that I disagree with. And so I kind of put my hand to the plow, if you will. So I think being a pillar and stepping out of your comfort zone into an area of, okay, let me just be an example. Because some people sometimes it's too much pride in learning things. So when I see someone who has a lot of pride in them, what I try to do is be that much more of an example, because I'm not going to break through easily because your pride is so high and your ego is so big. So what I'm going to do is try my best to just be an example for them. And so if they can see something they can relate to, and then maybe they can cliche swallow their pride a little bit and take on, I guess, the attributes or character traits that I'm putting out there. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect in any way. I'm just saying that there are things that I hope to do or be that example where people can learn from and say, okay, for instance, this is very easy. I don't like to litter. I hate seeing our neighborhoods with trash on the ground. I just really hate that. And it could be the smallest piece of thing. I won't throw it on my conscience will get to me if I'm throwing something. I'll spend 5 minutes trying to pick it up and put it in there just in case I miss from playing basketball or something. So, but yeah, I don't like to litter, and so it's an example. I want my son to understand it's not good to throw your stuff on the street. It's not good to leave a person stranded there. Say hi. If a person, I understand the whole stranger danger piece, but if somebody says hi to you, you can say hi back. Right. So being nice and being an example is very, very important to that future generation. So that's how I would do it. Yeah. Just kind of be that example, because again, sometimes people don't, they don't like when people come at them, or try to give instruction because their ego is too big. Yeah.
DeVon Jackson, we want to thank you for joining us on 28 Days and Beyond. Yep. And when we come back, we'll have our final thoughts.
Mentors have the ability to lead in just about every situation. So when I came to that crossroad in college, when I had to choose between staying and going, it was my work study supervisor, Darlene, and her husband, Rich, who mentored me. They helped me see what I couldn't see in myself. I clearly remember that night in their dining room talking about my options. They gave me the tools to make the right decision. All along I had possessed these tools. I just didn't know how to use them. I'm not sure if they realized how much their mentoring changed my life, but it's given me many opportunities to give back and help others utilize their tools on their journeys to success. I came back junior year with a new focus. I found my passion in serving others and a curiosity for learning of other people and other cultures. I majored in sociology, and I had a way better GPA when I graduated from college. My true passion. I continued on to get my master's in educational leadership and look forward to pursuing my doctorate very soon. One day of mentoring can change one life forever. Be that mentor.
We're back to 28 Days and Beyond with our final thoughts. Very interesting dialogue.
Definitely.
What are some of the things that came to mind as DeVon was talking about, that mentorship and the pillars and things?
Yeah, I think one of the important takeaways is, well, there's two actually. One is that these are folks who we see all around us. It doesn't have to be a formal designation. This is what you are. Here's the crown. Now go wear it. It's just people in their everyday lives. And number two is stepping up and assuming that role, even if it's not, requested of you, but knowing that ultimately that's the right thing to do. What about you?
Well, people got to have courage. And in order to have courage, you got to have character. And you got to run the risk of doing the right thing, regardless if the person feels it's the right thing to do. They have an old saying, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So if someone gets offended or slightly agitated by you helping them, that could be a blind spot for them. And you can say, hey, listen, it wasn't my intent, but I do have concern, because in order for these things to change, I can't sit by idly and not say anything.
Certainly.
And I think with that approach, it can correct somebody, or they may later on think about that. So we got to plant those kind of seeds to understand the genuine care that we have. And you never know how that person may walk away and come back with those thoughts in their heads.
Yeah, I think one of the things that DeVon said was tactfully approaching the situation. But I mean, you're absolutely right. For me, it's about having a commitment to a larger goal, right? Obviously, you know, if you're in some neighborhood that you have no connection to, it doesn't matter if they're throwing trash on the street. You ain't got to say, right? But if it's a place where you live, or if it's a place where you care about the people who live there, then that's an opportunity for you to step up and say something. And you may get cursed out or you may be ignored, but the point is that you've said something, you've done your part. Now maybe the next time they're out there doing that, maybe they'll think twice because you've set that example, at least you planted that seed in their mind. But you know, like he said, you have to be actively working towards a solution or you can't say nothing.
Yeah, I like setting the precedents, right? I know when I grew up, it was certain things you couldn't even do, even you was from a different neighborhood, because it was respect with those protocols or the street rules that was established. You're not going to be talking to our women any kind of way. You're not going to be snatching somebody's pocketbook, and you, as we called it, you're not going to move on somebody because it was going to be retaliation from the whole neighborhood. And we, you know, they said where I grew up, it says men do 3 things in dealing with situations: we talk, we come to terms, we walk away, or we fight. After that, ain't too much negotiation. But I think we have to have the courage to reclaim what was lost and not sit idly by and say, hey, this is status quo, or that person's just gonna whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we thank you for joining us here on 28 Days and Beyond, where we reflect on our heritage, our history, and our culture in our own authentic voice. Until next time, peace.